I won the lottery, and within 48 hours, my dad and relatives, who ignored me for 30 years, suddenly wanted to be family, so I exposed their plan to steal from me at dinner and cut them off forever. I've lurked on Reddit for years reading stories about terrible families and thinking, at least I don't have to deal with that. The joke was on me. I didn't have to deal with family drama because I didn't have a family. Or so I thought. 3 months ago, I won $2 million in the state lottery. For about 48 hours, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. A 36-year-old man who'd been scraping by since his mother died 14 years ago suddenly handed a golden ticket. I could pay off my apartment. I could finally fix my car instead of praying it would start every morning. I could breathe. Then my phone started ringing. Numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails from people claiming to be family. Facebook friend requests from strangers with my father's last name. An email from someone calling herself Aunt Patricia, saying she'd been searching for me for years. For 30 years, I didn't exist to them. I was the bastard, the mistake, the kid from the wrong side of the family. Now I'm worth $3 million, and suddenly, I'm family. Let me back up the backstory. My mother was 19 when she had me. My father was 22. They weren't married, a fact that apparently mattered a great deal to his family. His mother, my grandmother, made it clear from the start that my mother wasn't good enough. Wrong neighborhood, wrong education, wrong tax bracket. When my parents split up, my father left us when I was 5. His family treated it like the natural order being restored. My father didn't just leave, he disappeared. Started a new family 2 states over, new wife, new kids, new life. He never paid a dime of child support. My mother worked 2 jobs waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night to keep us in a 1-bedroom apartment with heat. She was 24 years old, exhausted, and completely alone. She tried to maintain a relationship with my father's family. I have the letters. She kept copies of everything, something I didn't fully appreciate until years later, when those copies became the only proof of what really happened. She wrote to my grandmother twice a year, every year, sending photos of me, asking if I could come visit for holidays. Every single letter was returned unopened, returned to sender. My grandmother didn't even bother to open them. I remember being 6 years old and asking my mother why I didn't have grandparents like other kids. She told me that some families are smaller than others, but smaller doesn't mean less love. She never badmouthed them, not once. Even when she was dying, cancer diagnosed at 43, gone at 44. She never said a cruel word about the people who abandoned us. I was 22 when she died. I just started working full-time after dropping out of community college to help with her medical bills. The insurance didn't cover everything. The debt collectors didn't care that my mother was gone. I spent my 20s paying off her treatment 1 paycheck at a time. I didn't have a father at her funeral. I didn't have grandparents, aunts, uncles, or cousins. I had a handful of her work friends and my boss, who gave me 3 days off before expecting me back at the warehouse for 14 years after that I worked. I saved. I did everything alone because there was no one else. I got used to it. I even made peace with it. Some people have big families. I had myself. Then I bought a lottery ticket at a gas station on a Thursday night, and everything changed. The invasion? The state I live in doesn't allow lottery winners to remain anonymous. My name was published in the local paper. Within 12 hours, it was being shared on Facebook groups for my hometown. Within 24 hours, the phone call started. The first one was from my father. I didn't recognize the number, but the voicemail was unmistakable. His voice older now, cracking with what I'm sure he thought was emotion. "Son, it's me, it's Dad. I know it's been a long time, but I want you to know that I've thought about you every single day. I've always loved you. Please call me back. I want to make things right." I listened to that voicemail 7 times. Not because I was moved, because I was trying to understand how someone could lie so effortlessly. Always loved me. This from a man who missed every birthday, every school event, every milestone. A man who started a new family and never looked back. My father said he always loved me. I asked him what my birthday was. He didn't know. He didn't even know how old I am. When I finally called him back, I kept my voice neutral. I asked him 3 questions. What's my birthday? What's my middle name? How old am I? He stammered through all 3. Got my birthday wrong by 2 months. Didn't know my middle name at all. It's James after my mother's father. He guessed I was 34. I'm 36. It's been so long, he said, his voice pitiful. You can't hold that against me. I hung up. The calls kept coming. My grandmother, the woman who returned my mother's letters unopened, who once told my mother that I wasn't her real grandson because my parents were never married, suddenly wanted me at the family reunion. She left a voicemail saying how much she'd missed watching me grow up and how she wanted to make up for lost time. My grandmother cropped me out of family photos, literally cut around my face. I found one at a garage sale, once a family portrait from when I was maybe 3 or 4. Probably the last event I was invited to before my father left. Someone had taken scissors and carefully cut my small face out of the photograph. Just mine. Everyone else was intact. I bought it for $25 and kept it in a drawer for 15 years, a reminder of exactly how much I meant to them. Now she wants me at the family reunion. Cousins I'd never met sent friend requests on Facebook. Their profiles showed lives I'd never been part of. Family barbecues, holiday dinners, group photos at the beach. Decades of memories that I was deliberately excluded from. One of them, someone roughly my age, messaged me directly. Hey, 'cause so crazy, we never met. We should totally hang out. I have some ideas. I'd love to run by you. The cousin I'd never met asked for $50,000 for his business. When I asked what business, he said, I'll figure it out once I have the money. But the most audacious was when an aunt, a woman I'd never laid eyes on, showed up at my apartment, just appeared at my door, with a folder full of investment opportunities and a rehearsed speech about how she'd been trying to find me for years, but my mother had kept us apart. They blamed my mother, said she kept me away. I have letters she sent begging them to let me visit. Every single one was returned unopened. I showed my aunt the letters, copies of course. The originals are in a safety deposit box now, along with other important documents. I pulled out the folder I dug out of storage after the first few calls came in. Return address stickers in my mother's handwriting. Return to sender stamps, some of them still sealed. My aunt's face went through several expressions. Confusion, realization, and finally something I can only describe as recalculation. She was trying to figure out how to spin this. Well, she said, I'm sure there's an explanation. Maybe she sent them to the wrong address for 18 years? I asked. Same wrong address. She left without her folder of investment opportunities. Update won the test. After a week of phone calls, messages, and one more in-person visit, a cousin who wanted to borrow money for back rent, I made a decision. I wasn't going to simply cut them off. I wanted to understand what I was dealing with. I wanted to see it clearly with my own eyes. So I told them I was considering helping family, but first I said I wanted to get to know everyone. I'd been alone for so long and this sudden reconnection was overwhelming. I suggested a family dinner. I would cook, I would host, and we could have real conversations. No money discussed, just family getting to know each other. My father was enthusiastic. That's all I've ever wanted, son. Just a chance. My grandmother said she was so pleased that I was open to reconciliation. Cousins messaged back with emoji-filled responses about how excited they were. What none of them knew was that my state is a 1P party consent state for recording. I'd done my research. I talked to a lawyer friend, one of the few real relationships I'd maintained over the years, and confirmed that I could legally record any conversation I was part of without informing the other parties. I also set up my apartment very carefully. Cameras in common areas, voice recorders in places where conversations might happen when they thought I wasn't listening. I wasn't doing this for legal purposes. I had no intention of suing anyone. I was doing it for myself. For proof for the moment when the gaslighting started, when they would inevitably tell me that I misheard or misunderstood, I wanted receipts. The dinner was scheduled for a Saturday 3 weeks after the call started. I spent that time being pleasant, responsive, and vaguely non-committal. I answered calls from my father, where he told me lengthy stories about how he'd always meant to reach out, but life got in the way. I listened to my grandmother explain how my mother had been difficult and kept grudges and refused to let us see you. I didn't argue. I didn't correct them. I just listened and let them talk. The more they talked, the more they revealed themselves. My father, it turned out, had considerable debt, medical bills from a surgery he needed but couldn't afford. His new wife had left him several years ago. His other children, my half-siblings, people I'd never met, had apparently cut him off. He was alone now and broke, and suddenly remembered he had another son. My grandmother's situation was similar. Her house needed significant repairs. She was on a fixed income. The family who had seemed so complete in those photographs I'd been cropped out of. They were scattered now, fractured by their own dramas and disputes. The only thing that had brought them together again was the news of my lottery win. Even knowing what I knew, there was a small, pathetic part of me that wondered, what if they had changed? What if the money was just the catalyst they needed to do what they should have done years ago? What if I could finally have a family? I knew it was foolish. I knew it even as I thought it. But 30 years of loneliness creates a hunger that doesn't disappear just because you know the food is poisoned. Update 2. The dinner. 12 people came to my apartment that Saturday. 12 people who shared my blood and not a single memory. My father, my grandmother, 2 aunts, 1 uncle, 6 cousins of varying ages. They arrived in nice clothes with bottles of wine and rehearsed smiles. My apartment had never been so full. I'd lived there for 7 years, and this was the first time I'd had more than 2 guests at once. Part of me, that small, stubborn part, felt something warm at the sight of it. A full table. Laughter. People calling me by name. I cooked for hours. My mother's recipes. She'd written them down in a notebook that I'd kept all these years. The pages stained with oil splatters and tears. Pot roast the way she made it on special occasions. Mashed potatoes with too much butter, because that's how she liked them. Green beans with bacon, because I remembered her saying her mother used to make them that way. No one commented on the food beyond polite compliments. No one asked about the recipes, or wondered aloud if these were family dishes passed down. They didn't know, of course. They didn't know anything about my mother's cooking or her traditions or her life. They'd made sure of that. The dinner itself was exactly what I expected. My father dominated conversation with stories about himself, his career, his struggles, his new perspectives on life. My grandmother occasionally interrupted to share memories of the family that I had never been part of. Cousins talked around me, not to me, exchanging inside jokes and references I couldn't follow. I was a guest at my own dinner, an outsider who happened to be footing the bill. But the real performance came when they thought I wasn't paying attention. I'd set things up carefully. The apartment wasn't large, but it had a few blind spots, a hallway to the bathroom, the small balcony, the kitchen, when I was ostensibly busy cooking. These were the places where conversations happened in lowered voices, where the masks slipped. I didn't hear everything in real time. I was too busy playing host, refilling glasses and passing dishes and pretending to be the grateful, long-lost relative finally welcomed home. But the recordings caught it all. Update 3. The recordings. I spent 3 days after the dinner listening to what they said when they thought I couldn't hear. My father talking to one of my aunts in the hallway. He seems simple enough. Keep smiling. Be friendly. And I bet he writes the check within a month. He's desperate for family. You can see it. My grandmother on the balcony with a glass of wine, talking to her favorite daughter. Just be patient. He doesn't have anyone else. Eventually, he'll want to include us in his will. He owes us for being family. One of my cousins in the kitchen, while I was in a bathroom, talking to another. His mother was trash, but at least she produced a lottery ticket. That's about the only useful thing that woman ever did. I listened to that last one several times. My hands were shaking, not from sadness. I've been sad about my mother for 14 years. This was anger, pure, clarifying anger. My mother worked herself into an early grave to give me a life. She never complained, never blamed anyone, never let me see how hard it was until I was old enough to understand. She was the only person who ever loved me without conditions, without expectations, without wanting anything in return except for me to be okay. And these people, these strangers who abandoned us, had the audacity to call her trash in my home while eating food from her recipes. I knew what I was going to do. I'd known since the call started, if I was being honest. But now I had proof, not just for them, for myself, for the small lonely part of me that still wondered if maybe I was wrong, if maybe I was being too harsh, if maybe they deserved a chance. They didn't. The recordings made that clear. Update 4. The speech. The second dinner was scheduled for 2 weeks later. A follow-up, I called it. I really enjoyed getting to know everyone, and I want to continue building these relationships. They were eager, too eager. My father called to confirm 3 times. My grandmother sent a card in the mail. The first piece of correspondence she'd ever sent me that didn't have returned to sender, stamped on it. This time, 11 people came. One cousin had a scheduling conflict. Still 11 people who saw dollar signs when they looked at me gathered around a table that had never felt so small. I served the same food, my mother's recipes. No one had noticed the first time, and no one noticed now. After dessert, apple pie from a recipe my mother got from a library cookbook because she didn't have any family recipes to inherit. I stood up and tapped my glass. I want to thank everyone for coming, I said. These past few weeks have been eye-opening. I've spent most of my life without family, and suddenly having all of you reach out has been overwhelming. Smiles around the table. My father nodded solemnly. My grandmother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. I've made some decisions about how I want to move forward, but first I want to share something with all of you. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker I'd set up. The room was quiet, confused. This wasn't in the script they'd anticipated. I pressed play. My father's voice filled the room. He seems simple enough. Keep smiling, be friendly, and I bet he writes the check within a month. The blood drained from his face. He opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. My grandmother's voice came next. Eventually, he'll want to include us in his will. He owes us for being family. She clutched the napkin so tightly her knuckles went white. I saw her glance toward the door calculating exit routes. And finally, my cousin, his mother, was trash, but at least she produced a lottery ticket. The room was silent. No one was looking at each other. They were all looking at me, and for the first time, they weren't seeing a lottery ticket. They were seeing someone who knew exactly what they were. I grew up without a father, I said. Without grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. My mother raised me alone because every single one of you decided I wasn't worth knowing. You didn't just ignore me, you actively excluded me. You cropped me out of photos. You returned letters unopened. You let my mother struggle and die without a word of support. I took a breath. My voice was steady. I'd practiced this. For 30 years I didn't exist to you. I was the mistake, the reminder of something you'd rather forget. And then I won some money, and suddenly you all remembered I was alive. My father tried to interrupt. Son, you have to understand. I said. I don't have to understand anything. That's the part you never grasp. I don't owe you explanations or money or forgiveness. You had 30 years to be my family. You chose not to. That was your choice. You made it freely, and you made it consistently, year after year, until the day my name appeared in the paper, attached to a number you liked. I picked up a folder I'd prepared and opened it. I'm donating $500,000 to a charity for abandoned children. It's called the Second Chance Foundation. They provide support for kids who age out of foster care with nowhere to go. Kids who don't have anyone. The donation is being made in memory of my mother, whose name will be on a plaque in their new community center. I let that sink in. The rest of the money stays with me. I'm moving to a new city. I've already bought a house. Nothing extravagant, but it's mine. I'm going to invest, save, and maybe finally take some time to figure out what I want my life to look like. What I'm not going to do is share a single cent with any of you. My grandmother stood up. You ungrateful. I'm not finished. My voice was cold now, harder than I knew I was capable of. You're going to leave my apartment now. You're going to delete my number and forget I exist, which should be easy since you did it for 3 decades. If any of you contact me again, I'll release the full recordings to everyone you know. I'll let your churches and your employers and your neighbors hear exactly what kind of people you are. I looked at my father last. He was crying. Real tears, I think, though, not tears of remorse. Tears of a man who had just watched $500,000 walk out the door. You said you always loved me, I said to him, but you didn't even know my birthday. You don't love me. You don't even know me, and you never will. I walked to the front door and opened it. Get out. Update 5, the aftermath. They left. Some of them tried to argue or plead as they walked out, but I didn't respond. I just stood there, holding the door until the last one was gone. My grandmother moving slowly, shooting me a look of pure hatred as she passed. I closed the door, locked. It sat down on my couch in my empty apartment and cried for the first time since my mother's funeral. Not because I was sad about losing them. I couldn't lose something I never had. I cried because for a few weeks I'd let myself hope. I'd let that small, hungry part of me imagine what it might be like to have a family. Sunday dinners and holiday gatherings, and people who called just to check in. They could never give me that. They'd proven it over and over for 30 years, and then again in my own living room. They didn't want me. They wanted what I had. The difference is everything. The next month was busy. I changed my phone number. I deleted all my social media accounts. I closed on the house in a city 3 hours away, far enough that no one would think to look for me there. I donated the money to the Second Chance Foundation and got a letter back, thanking me, including a photo of the plaque that would bear my mother's name. She would have been embarrassed by the attention, I think. She never liked being the center of things, but she deserved to be remembered by more than just me. She deserved to have her name attached to something good, something that would help kids like I used to be. I've been in the new city for 6 weeks now. The house is small, 3 bedrooms, which feels enormous after years of apartment living with a backyard I don't know what to do with yet. I've started seeing a therapist, something I should have done years ago. We're working through a lot of things, including my complicated feelings about a family that was never really mine. My father tried to contact me once about a month after the dinner. He found my email, somehow probably from one of my old social media accounts before I deleted them, and sent a long message about how I'd misunderstood, and he deserved a chance to explain. I didn't respond. I just marked it as spam and moved on. I've heard through the grapevine old neighbors from my hometown that my grandmother has been telling people I'm mentally unstable and manipulated by social media, that I was always difficult just like his mother. The same lies she's been telling for 30 years adjusted for new circumstances. I don't care. Let her say whatever she wants. The people who matter know the truth. The strange thing is I don't regret any of it. Not the dinner, not the recordings, not the speech. For years I wondered if I'd been too harsh in my judgment of them. If maybe I was holding on to childhood resentment that I should have let go. If maybe they weren't as bad as I remembered. They were worse. They were exactly as bad as I feared. And finding that out was almost a relief. I don't have to wonder anymore. I don't have to leave a door open just in case. I know now with complete certainty that they are not my family in any way that matters. Final thoughts. Someone in my therapist's waiting room asked me recently if I was happy. It was small talk, a stranger making conversation, but I thought about it for a long time afterward. Am I happy? I'm comfortable. I'm secure. For the first time in my adult life, I don't have to worry about whether my car will start or if I can afford to get sick. That's not nothing. That's actually quite a lot, but happy. I'm not sure I know what that feels like yet. I'm working on it. I think about my mother a lot. I think about what she would say if she could see me now, living in a house with a backyard money in the bank, finally free of the debt that haunted my 20s. I think she'd be proud. I think she'd also be sad that I had to do it all alone. I'm still alone, but it's a different kind of alone now. It's a choice rather than a sentence. I'm building a life here slowly, carefully on my own terms. I've joined a community garden. I'm taking cooking classes, learning to make things beyond my mother's recipes. I've even gone on a few dates though, nothing serious yet. Maybe someday I'll have a family of my own. People who are there not because of what I have, but because of who I am. People who would stay even if the money disappeared tomorrow. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just have good friends and meaningful work, and a quiet life in a small house. That would be okay too. It would be more than okay. It would be enough. The money didn't change who I am. It just revealed who everyone else was. And that revelation, painful as it was, might have been the most valuable thing I got out of the whole experience. They didn't want me. They wanted my money. And I'd rather be alone and rich than surrounded by people who only see dollar signs when they look at me. Mom, if you're out there somewhere, the plaque looks really nice. Your name in brass in a building full of kids getting second chances. I hope that makes you smile. I'm going to be okay. Edit. Thank you all for the awards and supportive comments. I wasn't expecting this to blow up. For those asking, no, I don't plan on reconnecting with any of them. That door is closed, but I am planning to volunteer with the Second Chance Foundation once I'm more settled. Seemed like the right thing to do. Edit 2. A few people have asked about the recordings. Yes, they're in a safe place. I don't plan on releasing them publicly. That would hurt me more than them at this point, but I have them if I ever need them. Sometimes the power is in the having, not the using. Edit 3. For everyone asking, my mother's name was Sarah. She would have turned 58 this year. I'm going to plant a garden in the backyard and fill it with her favorite flowers, sunflowers. She said they always looked like they were happy to see you. I'm learning to be happy to see me too. It's taking a while, but I'm getting there. Here's what I learned about family. Blood means nothing. Showing up means everything. For 30 years I didn't exist to them. I was the bastard, the mistake, the kid from the wrong side of the family. Now I'm worth $3 million and suddenly, I'm family. My father said he always loved me. I asked him what my birthday was. He didn't know. He didn't even know how old I am. My grandmother cropped me out of family photos, literally cut around my face. Now she wants me at the family reunion. They blamed my mother, said she kept me away. I have letters she sent begging them to let me visit. Every single one was returned unopened. So I tested them, invited them to dinner, recorded their conversations when they thought I couldn't hear. He seems simple enough. Keep smiling until we get the money. He owes us for being family. His mother was trash, but at least she produced a lottery ticket. I played the recordings at the second dinner, watched their faces go white. You had 30 years to be my family. You chose not to. That door is closed now. I donated $500,000 to a charity for abandoned children in my mother's name. Her name is on a plaque now. They didn't want me. They wanted my money. The difference is everything. I'd rather be alone and rich than surrounded by people who only see dollar signs when they look at me. Mom, the plaque looks really nice. I hope that makes you smile.